A curse can be defined as a solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. It is the expression of a wish that misfortune, evil, doom, etc. befall a person or group. Curses, of course, have been around pretty much since mankind has become sentient. They can be cast in a vast array of ways, from intense ritual to merely a thought, and even in curse words depending on how the intention is placed. Oftentimes, an individual just uttering to the victim that they are cursed is enough for one to be instated as their fear then creates a thought form. Most spiritual civilizations were familiar with how the art of curse casting worked, and their magic was so powerful that those with little or no faith in the supernatural questioned whether or not they'd be affected by misfortunes, and even the few who didn't believe in them were still met with an ill fate. Native Americans certainly are no exception when it comes to magical knowledge, and most people know that their work is highly effective. Some curses are so powerful that they are in place definitely, however, in many cases can be revoked by leaders of that specific tribe. I highly recommend to anyone who is looking to relocate to an unfamiliar area, research whether or not it is possibly cursed, and to keep in mind places, things, and even lineage or groups of people can fall victim to a curse. Continuing on with the list, I ask that you help the channel by liking the video and by subscribing. Support is greatly appreciated as I'm working hard to provide these videos for everyone. Thank you. Brunswick Springs, Vermont. Brunswick Springs is a small town of around 100 residents and located well off the main road. There are 6 individual springs at that spot, and combined with minerals, were once waters that were renowned for having healing power. The Abenaki Indians relied on the springs for this reason. They once brought a wounded soldier to the springs, and he was healed immediately. The soldier returned to the springs after the French-Indian War. He had plans to bottle and sell the water. In that struggle of the Abenaki disagreement, there were a few deaths. One of them was an infant. Infant's mother cursed the springs by saying that anyone who tried to profit off the water would fail. Over the following years, the area had attempted to develop, and people tried to take advantage of its beauty. The buildings there have either collapsed or have caught fire. Many deaths have occurred around the curse site, such as drowning and suicide. It is said that if any businessman today tried to develop the land, he could not. Many people, including those of Abenaki lineage, still frequent the springs to this day, and are still experiencing the healing power of the water as needed. Saco River, New Hampshire. The Saco River originates in the White Mountains of New Hampshire and travels over 130 miles through the southeast corner into Maine until it joins the Atlantic Ocean. It is a popular spot for outdoor activities. However, the Saco River is known to be quite dangerous for various reasons, including a curse. The legend states that in the late 1600s, a Saco tribe woman, who was Chief Squandra's wife, and their son were in a canoe near Indian Island in the Saco River. They were met by 3 soldiers from upriver. These men were terrible and threw the baby into the water. The child was rescued by the mother, but died a few days later due to complications. Squandra mourned for 3 days, and on the 3rd day he went down to the riverbank and uttered a curse that would kill 3 people of European descent every year in the river. Some people are cautious of the water and respect the curse these days. It is estimated the yearly drowning rate in the river is around 3 people. You went to Basin, Utah. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the stories that surround Skinwalker Ranch in northwest Utah. There are endless accounts from different witnesses of supernatural events that occur there. No occurrence at the ranch is ever the same, but things that frequent the ranch are UFOs, portals opening and closing, with creatures coming out of them, oversized wolf sightings, light anomalies, cattle mutilations, and more. There are a few speculations as to why the ranch is so active. Witnesses claim the entire 3.5 million acre basin is buzzing with unexplained events, It is said that the Navajo Indians released a dreadful curse upon the land. Hundreds of years ago, the Ute and Navajo were two major tribes that populated the area. Both the tribes were in conflict with each other, and the Ute tribe betrayed the Navajo by allying with the U.S. Army. The Navajo were forced out of the land and forced to move to Fort Sumner, while the Ute moved to the Uinta Basin. They were certain the Navajo laid a curse on the land and that they were being haunted by skinwalkers. Point Pleasant, Virginia. If you are familiar with Point Pleasant, you've most likely heard about the Mothman, but things have been weird there for a long time before the unusual cryptid came about. To the time following the Revolutionary War, the Native American warriors were led by a Shawnee chief known as Tippecanoe, or Cornstalk. He was known as a great warrior, but were forced to retreat because of weaponry advantages from the opposition during the Battle of Point Pleasant. Fort Randolph was built as a barrier to prevent possible Native American retaliation. In November of 1777, Cornstalk arrived to the fort to negotiate a peace treaty, but was taken into custody along with his son and two other Native Americans. Before they were shot and killed, Cornstalk had called on the Great Spirit to curse the land for 200 years. Since then, two devastating floods hit Point Pleasant in the 1800s. An entire city block was burned in downtown. There were two plane crashes where everyone on board was killed. In 1798, a freight train derailed, spilling toxic chemicals into the city's water supply. Other strange events have happened. Lightning strikes on clear nights. In December 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed and 46 people died. This was the last major disaster to occur, and that's when the town was plagued by the Mothman. Charles Island, Connecticut. The island, formerly known as Pokehog, was not cursed one time, but 3 times, and still may be holding pirate treasure. The lack of permanent establishment is based on the belief that the island is still cursed. The first curse was from the Pawcatuck chief in 1639, when he traded the island to European settlers, who was upset over the kidnapping of his daughter. In 1699, Captain William Kidd laid a curse for the obvious reason to protect his treasure. The third curse came from the Mexican emperor Guatemozin in the 16th century. He was captured and tortured by Spanish conquistadors who demanded answers as to where the treasure was hidden. Guatemozin was eventually executed. In 1721, some Connecticut sailors stumbled across the treasure and found it stashed in a cave in Mexico, and they returned home with it. 4 out of the 5 men died, and the last remaining man transferred it to Charles Island along with the curse. The state of Connecticut now owns the island, where it is designated as a nature preserve. Bridgewater Triangle, Massachusetts. Located in southeastern Massachusetts is Bridgewater Triangle, a 200 square mile area that has been the site of urban legends and curses for centuries. This has been the home for strange phenomena such as ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, and strange creatures. The region at the middle of Bridgewater is a swamp called Hockomock that was used by the indigenous people up to 9,000 years ago. The Wampanoag people named the swamp Hockomock, which means where spirits dwell, and was called Devil's Swamp by English colonists. During the 18th and 19th century, it was deemed as useless by the settlers, and attempts were made to drain it. In the forest, some places seemingly are overtaken by dark power, and it is also where a strange creature called Pukwudgie resides. It has also been known to be a place of various cult activities such as murder and animal mutilations. Some say the area has been cursed by Native American spirits because the land was taken from them and for unnecessary brutality. Others believe Bridgewater Triangle is a vortex where things don't operate the way they should in the natural world. Tanaya Canyon, Yosemite. Tenaya Lake, Creek, and Canyon are named after the chief of the Awanichis Indians who lived in Yosemite Valley, which they called Awani. Their population was very small as disease brought by the settlers raged the tribe. In the 1850s, settlers decided to remove them to a reservation near Fresno. The tribe refused and tried to evade the eviction. a 2nd Battalion entered the valley to enforce the deportation, and it turned violent. One of the Indians, being Tanaya's son, was shot trying to escape. The chief became enraged, and during a confrontation with the captain, he laid a curse. To this day, hauntings are experienced in Yosemite Valley and Tanaya Canyon. There are also strange accidents and mysterious deaths. It is also said that the curse has been amplified since archaeologists have recently been digging up the remains of the Indians for study. Tecumseh's Curse, Tippecanoe. Tippecanoe was a Native American stronghold north of present-day Lafayette. Unnerved by the growing Indian Confederation, led by Shawnee tribes, Tecumseh and his brother Tenskwatawa, the governor of the Indiana Territory, William Harrison, made gestures of negotiations with the Shawnee, while preparing a militia. The Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811 decimated the village. Tecumseh joined with the British and was killed during the War of 1812. His brother, Tenskwatawa, went into hiding after allegedly placing a curse upon Harrison. Harrison died from pneumonia 1 month after his inauguration as U.S. President. Since then, every president elected in a year ending with 0 has died in office. Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, William McKinley, Warren Harding, Franklin Roosevelt, John Kennedy have been marked by the 0-year curse. The only president who has not died in office has been Ronald Reagan and George Bush. Both, however, have had an assassination attempted on them. The only president who died in office without being elected in a cursed year was Zachary Taylor.